My name is Benita Pedersen, and I'm with allfiredupforfreedom.com. I'm an occasional contributor here at Druthers, and I'm live on a location in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada right now. And there is a very special event going on. This event was organized by YEG United, and they are a group of young people from Edmonton and area, including 19-year-olds that are standing up for the protection and restoration of rights and freedoms. So there's a special event going on today, and we are in Edmonton. We're on Gateway Boulevard North and White Avenue. This is one of the busiest intersections in Edmonton. We have a lot of traffic here, and it's fantastic. The cars that come here have to stop at the red light and read our signage. So we're having a super great day here, and I've got some stuff to show you. We've got a giant banner on display. It reads, #Reject Agenda 2030, allfiredupforfreedom.com. Again, that's #Reject Agenda 2030, allfiredupforfreedom.com. I had 12 of these giant banners created. They were on Orville Passes south of Red Deer about a week ago. Absolutely amazing, huge signage, huge, beautiful signage to help make an impact on people, help them realize about Agenda 2030, help them realize they have to reject Agenda 2030, and giving them a website they can go to for more information. So as you can see, we're set up here. We've got a staging area right there, and the speeches will be starting in a little bit. We've got a fantastic crowd of people, folks. Absolutely great. Wonderful, wonderful crowd of people here, and the majority, of course, are in support of our message. We are against Agenda 2030, and we are against 15-minute cities. So I'll just give you a little look around about what we've got here. Some really, really great people gathered in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada right now, and there's going to be speeches expressing concerns about the 15-minute city concept. So just a wonderful, wonderful crowd of people here. And as you can see, we've got an audience as well, a fantastic audience of people that are driving by, and they have to stop at the red light, and they have to read our signage, and hopefully they're also going to hear some of our messaging. We are in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, at the intersection of White Avenue and Gateway North. This is one of the busiest intersections in Canada. People who ride the buses and go by us, they're seeing what we're doing. They're reading our signage. So this is just fantastic. A busy intersection with huge signage can be very, very helpful, folks. And as you can see, we've got some big signage today. So the event is going to start in a little bit, but in the meantime, my understanding is one of the event organizers is interacting right now with a representative from the City of Edmonton. So let's see if we can listen in.
Which was exactly what the Edmonton ones are based on. Not only did they already divide it into 6 districts, like you already said you're going to divide it into 15 districts, well, now they have checkpoints at each district. You didn't mention that these different districts within the 15-minute city, not only are they going to be 15-minute walking distance, but now you're not going to be able to go from one district to the other, especially if you drive a car. In fact, is it not true that they're installing not just physical bollards and barricades between the districts, but they're actually installing cameras so they can monitor who goes through? And if you go through when you're not allowed or not supposed to, they're going to fine you. So let's be honest, the 15-minute city is really an idea that's supposed to get people used to the idea that they're no longer going to have a car and that they're going to be relegated to living in a very small area. And I would also like to add that this is also part of the climate change agenda, is that not? Is a 15-minute city also not in cohort with so-called the Paris Climate Change Accord? Please.
So you want me to answer? There's a lot of questions in there.
Okay.
Let's start from the first ones. I think I remember most of them. You let me know what I'm missing. So when you say they, you said they a lot. They are doing this or they want to do that. Do you mean the City of Edmonton, or are you speaking to some other they?
They is irrelevant. The point is what the 15-minute city will mean for the people.
Okay.
And what the 15-minute city will mean for the people is the removal of private car ownership and the idea that you're going to be relegated to your own little 1.5 in each direction walking distance with physical barricades with surveillance monitoring. So if you try to leave your district, just like the Hunger Games, you will be either prevented, fined, and eventually possibly arrested. Is this not true?
This is not true.
Okay, so how are they doing this in Oxford, England with the exact things that I'm talking about? Am I making this up?
Well, I don't work for Oxford, England, so what I know is what I've read from their statements that the City of Oxford has put out. So they put out a joint statement explaining their ideas and how
But do they not have cameras that are going to be finding people if they leave their district?
And you only get 100 coupons to leave your district.
Thank
a
you.
year.
I'm not making this
You
up.
have to apply for the coupons, which you may or may not get. You may or may not get the coupons to leave your district.
That's a very good point. Not only will you get fined if you try to leave your district, you have to actually apply for a travel pass. Remember that? Remember during COVID when we couldn't even go from province to province unless we showed our vaccine passport, or you couldn't go to Atlantic Canada, which is Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, or PEI, unless you showed them a so-called travel pass? Well, now you're going to need one of those travel passes if you want to leave your so-called 15-minute city, which is a 1.5 kilometer area.
So let me try answering your question. I can't speak definitively to what the City of Oxford is doing. I don't work for the City of Oxford, but I do know that they've put out their own press release explaining how their system works, and I'd encourage people to look at it. I work for the City of Edmonton, so I can speak definitively about what the City of Edmonton is doing, and I can tell you it's not installing gates, it's not installing barricades, it's not tracking
Not
motions,
yet, brother.
it's not...
Would you swear on the Bible that we're not going to be fined and that we're not going to have our have to show our IDs at stop signs or have our license plate scanned?
Because how do you know?
And wait a second, and do you not disagree with the idea that the 15-minute city is designed, not just in Oxford, but around the world with the intention of transitioning us to what they, the people who are planning this, including you, because you're one of them that's instituting this, the post-car future? Is it not true that they want to eliminate the access for private car vehicles? Is it not true that they want to make more and more lanes so-called ultra-low emissions vehicles, which will make it only electric cars allowed? Is it not true that in the 15-minute city, the average person will have a scooter or bike or on foot? Is that not true? In the 15-minute city, will the average person have a car?
What you're asserting is not true. Yes, it's not true. So let me explain. Other cities every city designs their plans as they see fit. There's no one looking over their shoulder telling them how to define a 15-minute community. And so cities get loose about how they want to do that. It could be that there are cities, maybe in Europe, that talk specifically about how far you might walk. In Edmonton's official plan, which is published on the website, it talks about our ability to walk, to roll, including driving and taking transit, all around to the places we need to go. It's not about creating restrictions, it's about creating options. Well, I'm trying to answer your question right now. I'm answering it right now.
The question was, are they not going to take away, they're not going to add more lanes that are ultra-low emissions vehicles or for electric vehicles only, and in the 15-minute city plans, are there not plans in place to remove parking, to remove more roads, and to make them more... I'm asking you, if they're trying to make the 15-minute city in a way that the average person will no longer have a car. It's a very simple question.
The answer is no. I keep telling you it's no.
And that's a direct
lie. Okay, but you don't believe it. Okay, I'll answer other questions. You asked me, how do you know?
How do I know
You asked me, how do I know?
Can I finish my question? So how do we know that what Oxford is currently going through and the people of Oxford are complaining about, how do we know that that is not going to happen here?
Well, you have an elected council at the City of Edmonton. They direct what myself and other employees at the City of Edmonton work on, and the work that we do has to go through public processes in order to be approved. So, for example,
it went through the public process, and 93% of the people voted against it, and the government said we're going to do it anyway. And how is it possible that you can pretend like you're not taking cues from Oxford when they were the first city to do this, and you're even using the same exact formula? 15-minute districts. It's 15 minutes. It's not an original idea at all.
No, and it's a very popular branding. That's why we use it.
And it's not popular. It's actually very unpopular now because people are figuring out what's going on. And you tried to say that it has no intention of transitioning us into a post-car future, but there's a direct article on the web for Toronto's plan for the 15-minute city where it declares in big bold letters that they're trying to transition us into a post-car future. In Vancouver, if you look at the climate change agreement, If you look at the climate change agreement, it also says the 15-minute cities in big bold letters are part of transitioning us into a post-car future. In fact, they say before 2025, they want to see at least 60% of vehicle traffic reduced. So when you're trying to tell me that the average person is still going to have a car, when at the same time the plan is to reduce vehicle traffic drastically, you're not being truthful. And I want you to also answer one question. Is it not tied into the climate change accord? Do they not want the 15-minute city to reduce our so-called carbon footprint?
That's the main motivation, is it not?
Is it not? Is that not the driving factor for the 15-minute? You want to pretend it's about convenience, but in reality, we know it's about a carbon footprint. And if you're going to, I want to know, have you ever heard the term personal carbon allowance?
I haven't heard that term until you said it just now.
Really?
So you me, but you know more stuff about these things than I do.
So we're going to need you then to be on these councils advocating for personal ownership of vehicles and stuff, because this is that coming down the pipeline whether you know it or not. So if you do believe in what you're saying to us and that this will never happen here, then you're the guy that's going to fight for it, are you not?
Oh, absolutely. I thought I actually believed that the city was going to try and prevent people from traveling around the city in the ways that they need to do the things that are important to them. I would absolutely be protesting alongside you. I mean, I like to play soccer. I play on the west end, I play on the east end, I drive all around the city, I drive my personal vehicle to get there. And if the government was going to restrict me from doing that, believe me, I'd be right there at the barricades with you guys.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Yeah, if in like Oxford, England, because I think the main reason why like us as Edmontonians are concerned is because the only other place that this is happening in the world is Oxford, England.
No, it's not even.
Or in Paris.
Paris, they're doing the same
well.
thing. In fact, in Paris was the first place that could declare themselves a 15-minute city. And just to prove that this is all about reducing carbon footprints and so-called carbon emissions, under the 15-minute city agenda, any local plane flight in France that could be done in 2.5 hours or less by train was now canceled. When you book a flight online, if you wanted to fly to Paris right now, not only does it give you the price of the flight or the duration of the flight, it gives you the carbon emissions for that flight. And for you to fly from here and back to Paris is around 500 kilograms of carbon. And that's what they want to reduce. They want to reduce the carbon. That's what these 15-minute cities are all about. Because someone driving around in their car creates too much pollution in their mind. In fact, do you know what the actual Paris Climate Accord states for the carbon emissions for each one of us?
I don't.
Well, I'll tell you. And this is why the 15-minute city is scary to people like us that know, because they're using people like you that seem well-intentioned. I'm not going to lie. You don't seem nefarious to me. You don't seem like you're trying to enslave us. You seem like you're just doing your job and you think you're doing the right thing. But when people like me see this, we see the whole big picture and we see where this is going. And the idea is they want to institute what they call a personal carbon allowance, where we now have a whole new type of currency alongside our actual currency. And now everything we do, everything we buy to eat or wear, everywhere we go and how we decide to get there is going to be tracked and given a so-called carbon allowance rating. And they said that the average North American, that's you and me, uses over 20 tons of carbon per year. And under this Paris Climate Accord, the only way we're going to survive climate change in the next 20, 30 years is if we each reduce our carbon footprint, which is a euphemism for our actual footprint, to around 1.5 to 2 tons of carbon a year. So that's what the entire driving factor behind these 15-minute cities are. They want to make it so people like you and me, we can't fly across the world to Paris and back anymore because it's going to be too much carbon. We can't get our cars and drive to the other side of town. There's going to be too much carbon. And the idea that you're not going to try to stop people from going from district to district is a complete lie. Because if you weren't trying to control people from going to district, you wouldn't separate the city into districts. You would leave it as it is now. So if you think people are really that stupid that you're literally going to create barricades around the city and then tell them while you're literally constructing the prison around the people, you're going to tell the people, we're not really constructing this prison, we're not really trying to stop you, we're not really doing the same type of 15-minute cities that they're doing in Oxford or in Paris, just like you never did the same COVID restrictions they did in Oxford or Paris, right? This stuff is done on a global scale. So whatever they're going to do in England, whatever they're going to do in Paris, which they're already doing now, canceling flights that are too much or stopping you from going from district to district and fining you if you do, that's all coming here. And it's coming under the exact same plan that you're promoting and you're trying to tell people is a good thing. And if you say that a 15-minute city is really going to allow car driving, why would they have different districts? Why? What's the point of a district?
What's the point?
I'll answer that question. Do you actually want an answer to that question?
Sure.
Okay, we have neighborhoods right now. The city right now is divided into about 400 neighborhoods. Has anyone, it's been that true for, I don't know, as long as Edmonton has existed. Has anyone tried to confine you to your neighborhood?
Never,
No.
but they never called it a district in section
That is true. So
They did during lockdown.
neighborhoods exist, and all during COVID, I came and went out.
wait,
hold on, no, I'm
I
answering your
gotta blow
question.
you up for a second.
I'm going to answer your
Because
question.
you said we were never
wanna go
confined.
shortstop.
Shortstop. You said we were never confined to our neighborhoods, but they certainly tried under COVID.
Yeah.
And let's just pretend for a second we go along with the 15-minute city plan, and now we have these wonderful districts. How much easier would it be for them to literally lock us down into a little tiny 1.5 square kilometers? Once you have those districts in place, once you have those barricades in place that aren't really there, how easy is it to put a few government personnel into position, and now all of a sudden we're locked in those districts? You literally think people are that stupid that they don't see it. And I want to also say one more thing. This whole personal carbon allowance. When they say they want me to use 1.5 to 2 tons of carbon per year, that means for someone like me, flies from here to Paris and back, that might be 13 hours of my day, 6.5 hours each way. Guess what that is? That's 500 kilograms or half a ton of carbon. That's 25% of what I'm supposed to use in a year to live. And I did it in a 13-hour flight. And you want me to live into a city that's going to trace every single thing I can do. If I go to the store and buy meat, I'm going to get taxed because beef is higher carbon rating. If I want to take a bus to the grocery store rather than walk, I'm going to pay a tax because now I'm using public transit. This is what the 15-minute city means. So if you're going to tell me that they're not trying to lock us down, they're not trying to confine us, would you at least agree that if we go along with the 15-minute city, allow them to create all these districts, if they were to try to lock us down, it would make it infinitely easier for them, would it not?
I don't see how it would make any easier to draw lines on a map saying here are groupings of neighborhoods in the city of Edmonton, which is what they are. I mean, there's no barricades, there's no barriers, there's no physical infrastructure.
How are you going to separate the districts?
Well, he said he had a question, and then I think I've never answered your question yet. So
Go
ahead.
Is there going to be a stipulation in this policy that says, look, we will never have barricades here?
No, we didn't consider that because
that's
the exact plan that we have considered.
Because
You got the mic.
in fact, there's infinite things that the plans will not do. We're not going to neuter your chinchilla, for example. We're not going to come and give you a haircut. Hold on. But listen.
Ridiculous they are.
What I'm saying is,
That's not a good argument.
there are many things that you can imagine that could happen.
No,
So
that's not
anything that
we
you
can
might imagine.
That's something
So-
that they're doing
We're not
already.
imagining it. It is happening.
It's happening right
you-
now. We're
I'm
not
not-
imagining it.
So-
So stop lying.
Yeah.
It's happening right now
We're
in
not
Oxford,
imagining it. We're not
England.
imagining it.
So they're doing it there.
I
Why
understand
wouldn't
that you're
they-
very concerned.
Excuse
I'm
me.
trying to answer his question.
But
You
you're
have to
not.
wait
You're
your
lying.
turn.
Let him
You have to wait your turn. Sorry. I know what's in the plans because I'm writing the plans. I work with the team that's creating the plans. So there isn't material in I work for the City of Edmonton, and I know what material is in the plans.
Right.
The plans don't contain statements about what they are not or what they don't contain.
De-incentivizing cars, for
They-
example, right? It doesn't say anything about that.
The plans talk about land use and mobility through the City of Edmonton.
Mobility by what mode?
So about all modes. So in the
but
plan,
you're prioritizing bike lanes and LRT over car lanes already.
Are you not
in the plan?
in the plan?
Hold
In
on.
the wait.
Plans,
In the
I'm
plan,
answering
do they
his
not-
question.
Do they not?
In the
What's
plan,
What's in the plan?
you will find information on all of the modes. You'll find the road network. You'll find information on new transit lines. You'll find information on bike lanes. You'll find information.
lines. What about new roads?
Excuse me. Watch
Are we
this.
building new
Watch
roads
this.
the same amount?
Watch this.
There are new
This will
roads.
answer your. This will clear up everything. In the new plans, does it make provisions for less cars or more cars?
Yeah, so
Does it take away parking? Does it add more bike lanes?
Exactly.
Answer that. Does it make space for more cars or less cars?
It's not your turn. You had a
Oh,
question.
look at that. Ask him the same question.
What
Ask
is
him
your
the same
question?
question.
No, ask whatever question
Ask
you
him the
wanted to
same
ask.
That was my question.
That is your question?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, yeah. We have multiple things going simultaneously. So your question was, will the city ever reduce road travel?
What's the priority?
Under the plans, because you say you know what's in the plans, under the plans, are they not making certain provisions, like making certain areas for electric vehicles only, like making certain areas for bikes only, like making certain areas for pedestrians only, making certain areas where you can't drive a car at all, and then also working to take away parking space for cars. So my question is, under all those things that I know are in the plan and you know are in the plan, does that make each district able to handle less vehicle traffic or more vehicle traffic?
There are specific places where cars are not allowed. They're called sidewalks, and we're on one right now. There are specific places called bike lanes where cars are not allowed. That's where the bikes travel. There are certain places where you can't walk as well. For example, the White Mud or Yellowhead Trail.
What I asked you was, with the addition of the things that we know are in the plan and the things that I'm talking about are the removal of entire parking lots, the removal of street side parking, the addition of electric vehicle only lanes, the addition of areas where you're not allowed to drive a car at all, the addition of pedestrian only, the addition of bike lane only, does that mean that each district will now have more parking space and more streets available for automobiles, or less parking space, less streets for automobiles, and ultimately less space for automobiles?
I see.
There will be less.
It's a very simple question. It's a yes or no answer.
Is it more or less room
Yes
for
or no?
More or less room for cars. There will be more space for other modes of transportation,
And
which
less space
could
for
mean
cars, right?
which could mean fewer parking spots. It could
No,
mean
I
fewer
didn't ask
travel
you
lanes.
if it would mean. I
It
asked
could
you.
be-
I asked you specific. No, he's lying again. I asked you.
I just told you the answer.
You
There
li-
will be in some places.
Are they not removing parking spaces? Are they not removing places where cars can drive? Are they not making
you said
other
they are.
places where
You
cars,
said they are.
only electric cars
You
can
said you're
drive?
gonna be
So
bike only.
ultimately, you're saying that there's going to be less space and less infrastructure to support cars.
So in the places
Less
where
space and less
bike lanes
no
are built,
overall
they could use car
no
space.
overall will the average person have less places to drive their car, less places to park their car, and more incentives not to have a car? Will there be less places for me to park a car in Edmonton under the 15-minute city? Let's try a very simple question.
Okay, so
Let's not simplify them, yes or no.
So fewer-
Will there be less parking for my car in my new district under a 15-minute city? Yes or no?
You already said no.
yes, there will be less places where roadway changes are done
in other
to accommodate more things.
So in other words, the 15-minute city is literally intentioned to try to drive us away from private car ownership and onto other means of travel like electric scooters and walking, so we don't have the same mobility that we once had. I don't know about you, but when I was 16 years old, the most important thing in my life was getting my license, because a car meant freedom, not just to me, to everybody else around. And now you guys want us to go along with a plan where we know the intention is to make that dream that the average 16-year-old had not a reality anymore. You want us to live in a world where the average 16-year-old gets used to living in the same square blocks for 90% of their life. You want to make us live in a world where the average 16-year-old needs to watch what they eat at the grocery store because they might go over their own personal carbon allowance. So I want you to answer again. Did they not use the climate change accord in the construction of the 15-minute city? And if you lie about this, I'll post the proof all over the internet with your face, because I have all the documentation to prove it. So I would like to say
But you haven't answered my question. Who is they? If we're talking about the municipal government, as in city council, and people who work for the city,
obviously the municipal government's not making these decisions because you're following what was already done in other countries around the world. So for you to try to pretend like this is happening on a national level or a federal level, you're full of crap, because you're literally mimicking what was done in Oxford, England, and now done in Paris, and now you're doing it in Canada, while you're trying to pretend like it's something that's been brought to Canadians' attentions by Canadians for Canadians, when in reality it's brought to us by international unelected bodies, and it filters down through people like you to try to sell it to members of the public like us. So once again, I'm going to ask you a very important question.
Where's the trash can?
Can you guys please give Alexa with
Where's the trash can?
United a huge round of applause?
Benita, where?
My name is Alexa, and I'm part of a social media account called YEG United, and I just wanted to thank you all for coming out today. I really appreciate that, and I really the amount of publicity we have reached is amazing. Even though it may not all be positive publicity, I am still very grateful.
No such thing.
So we have multiple speakers who are going to be talking today, including this guy who is a little preoccupied right now, and Benita Pedersen, which I'm very excited for. And I also wanted to thank Melanie for lending us this equipment. But before we start any speeches, I would love for everybody to join me in a prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. So, now we are going to have another member of YEG United who is going to speak a bit about our group and the documentary we are currently working on. So, everybody, please give a round of applause for Kara.
Hello everybody, see a lot of new faces, so not a lot of people that we know from freedom rallies and other things that you might know us from, but we are a group of students of YEG United, and we came together over a year ago now during the pandemic when a lot of our friends turned against us, outcasted us for being unvaccinated and choosing not to get the vaccine. So a lot of us are passionate about defending our rights, and we've all been affected adversely from the government mandates and the tyranny that they've put on us over the past few years. So we came together as youth because there's not a lot.
Talk louder.
Yeah, might as well. Might do that work this thing out. Yeah, I hope. Yeah, we'll go with it.
Check, yeah.
But it's good to do it. Yeah.
So basically our group came together about over a year ago, and we've been having new members join ever since, consistently. We seem like to be a refuge for people that have been outcasted from their social circles for having different views, because when you're our age, if you have anything that is contrasting to maybe a liberal perspective, you're not going to get along well in universities. You're not going to get along well with people your age because you're going to be labeled as a conspiracy theorist, a homophobe, racist, anything if you speak against the mainstream. So I'm so lucky to have found this group. I found Alexa online about a year ago. And yeah, we came together because many of us got kicked out of university for being unvaccinated. So I got kicked out of McEwen in an online class for being unvaccinated about a year ago. And none of it makes sense. So a lot of us, yeah, we came together, and now we're still trying to get the youth stories heard and the youth voices heard, especially our take on the pandemic, because there's a lot of documentaries on the Freedom Convoy and the pandemic, but they're from an older person's perspective, because look around, look who's here. The only young people are us, YEG United, unfortunately. So if you have any young people that you want to send our way or feel alone or outcasted, please send them our way. We accept everybody, whether you're vaccinated or not, any political views, like please come talk to us. We're very inclusive, and so we're working on a documentary right now called The Unheard, and it's all about sharing the stories that kind of got swept under the rug during the pandemic. So if you know anybody, whether it's people, it doesn't even have to be young people, people that have lost their jobs, their livelihoods. I know my mom lost her job, and even people that have been adversely affected by the vaccine. My uncle passed away from the vaccine. And our stories have been swept under the rug and gaslit by politicians, doctors, everybody under the guise of our health and safety. It doesn't make sense. So that's what we're working on. We're trying to get those voices heard, get our message out there, and just help people feel included. So now, here's Jesse, another member of YEG United, to talk about YEG United's stance on 15-minute cities.
Hello everyone, I'm Jesse. I'm a part of YEG United.
Hey, Jesse.
So I'd like to start off here by saying I've been reading some of the feedback that we've received on our posts promoting this protest. And I've noticed that a lot of the criticism we've been receiving contains a lot of misinformation. Misinformation that we're against the idea of making amenities and other services more easily accessible. But this couldn't be further from the truth. Now, as far as I know, everyone wants to make our cities more efficient, more convenient. But having everything you need but a bike ride away.
It's out again.
Test. Like I was saying, the problems start to arise when we look into the organization that's promoting this idea of the quote-unquote 15-minute city and its rather disturbing vision of the future, where you would be restricted to designated zones under the guise of helping climate change. Now, I know this may be difficult for some people, but before plowing full steam ahead, let's take a minute and ask ourselves, if we dive past surface level arguments like convenience and efficiency, are there any possible negative consequences of implementing ideas like this? And the answer we undoubtedly come to is yes. As the origin of these 15-minute cities comes from the WEF, the World Economic Forum, a very real organization who thinks that you need to be confined to a little playpen lest you decrease your carbon footprint. So when people try to dismiss our concerns as being conspiracy theory, I say this. This is a very real organization that many of our leaders globally, including our own Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, are a part of. And they're not just talking about this stuff. They're actively implementing it as we speak. Like we see in Oxford, England right now, where zones have already been carved out, and you will be fined for stepping outside of those zones. So I guess the sad attempt at dismissing our concerns as conspiracy theory kind of fall flat. Now people say, well, that's Oxford. That's not the plan for Edmonton. That couldn't happen here. Well, I pose the question to the ones so eager to implement these zones. What sort of surety do we have that restrictions like we see in Oxford, or worse, won't come further down the line? Because hollow promises aren't enough. That's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jesse, for sharing those amazing words and not being afraid to stand up while the majority of our generation is asleep. Now, our next speaker goes by the name of Chris Guy, and he is a huge inspiration to me. He's been battling the COVID mandates the past few years and is certainly not afraid to fight for our freedoms. He's a leader and a guide who has motivated countless Canadians and has even wrote a book entitled Just Say No. It is unacceptable that our governments are attempting to impose upon us these unreasonable restrictions. It is time now that we, the people, stand up and push back against them. That's right. Ladies and gentlemen, originally from Ontario and now in Alberta, please welcome Chris Guy.
Hello everybody, how are you? I was really excited that they reached out to me because this entire last 3 years, the people that we've been fighting for have been the youth. And they've been largely not at the protest, largely wearing masks, largely taking the jab, and largely listening to the government. So it was very refreshing to see that there's finally some young people standing up for the next generation. Now, this entire 15-minute city thing can be described so easily. We're going to call this little segment Layers of Tyranny. But before we even begin to get to the layers of tyranny and how they're going to use each one to enslave you and your family for generations, let's talk about how COVID was a vehicle to get us here. Prior to COVID, rights and freedoms were considered paramount to a successful society. So much so that millions of people fought and died in world wars to preserve those rights and freedoms. Now, the government knew this. They know you're not just going to give up your rights and freedoms without a fight, unless they could trick you. So enter COVID. Now all of a sudden, rights and freedoms are selfish and dangerous. And those who would advocate for them are terrorists. Because you don't want to go against the public health measure. Because now, in this new post-pandemic world, we have something called collective responsibility. Straight out of every communist playbook. And they told you, you're not wearing the mask for you, you're wearing it for everybody else. So now we're not only led to believe that freedoms are selfish and dangerous, we're led to believe that we're responsible, our actions are responsible for everyone else. And the reason they wanted to do that was, and try to lock us down, is because they want that life for us. They want you to have no freedoms. They want you to be on lockdown. So they used COVID to get you used to the idea of being no more than 5 kilometers from your home. They use COVID as the idea that you can't have rights and freedoms. And now, they know a pandemic can't last forever, but what can? A climate crisis can. A climate crisis lasts for generations. So COVID was a vehicle to retrain you, to set you up to accept the new climate change enforced agenda of total control. So how do they plan on controlling you with climate change? I know it sounds ridiculous. Well, we already saw with the environmental regulations, they're closing down farms, taking control of food production, making everything more expensive for us when 99% of us are on a fixed budget. But that's not the real thing. The real thing is something called a personal carbon allowance. And they don't want you to know about it yet until they can finally implement it. But it's there. It's everywhere around you. You just haven't really noticed it yet. In fact, you can go and ask MasterCard for the new climate card, and every single purchase you make will be given a so-called climate rating. This is going to be a new type of currency they use to make you watch, and every single choice you make. Oh, are you going to take a flight? Are you going to take a car? Are you going to eat that salad or eat a steak? Already, if you go to a grocery store to the vegan section, you go and eat some kale, and the package will say something like 0.2 kilograms of carbon per serving. Meanwhile, if you were going to the steak aisle, it would say something like 50 kilograms of carbon per serving. Now, how much carbon do they really want us to be able to use? And by use, that means by live. They tell us the average North American, and that's us, uses over 20 tons of carbon a year, or 20,000 kilograms of CO2. They say under the Paris Climate Change Agreement that we signed here, and where the 15-minute cities come from, and this whole idea of 15-minute city is to make each one of us reduce our carbon footprint, which is a euphemism for reducing your actual footprint. Well, they say that we're using 20 tons of carbon a year, and if we don't reduce that by 2030 to the average of 1.5 to 2 per person, we're all going to die of climate change. So they want you to track everything you do and give it a climate rating. And once you get you taught to the idea that it's okay to track and see how much climate change they're using, they're going to make you allow them to put what they're calling a personal carbon allowance on you. And now you have this new limit on your monthly living.
And if you go over your allowance for that month, they're going to charge you and tax you. Now, what does 2 tons of CO2 look like? I just mentioned it, that if I fly from here to Paris and back, it's about 7 hours each way, 14-hour flight. If you go to Google Flights right now and you type in Edmonton to Paris flight, you'll see the flights arranged either by price, duration of how long it is to get there, or now you can get it arranged by how much carbon it costs per person. And what do you think a flight from here to Paris and back costs per person in carbon? Answer, around 500 kilograms or half a ton or 25%, 1/4 of your yearly allowance. So in 14 hours of flying from here to Paris and back, you just used 25% of your so-called personal carbon allowance for the year. And how much are they going to charge you for every ton you go over? Well, Trudeau already told us. By 2030, they're going to charge you $170 per ton of carbon that you go over your so-called limit. So now if you're someone like me that travels everywhere all over the world, you're probably going to go over the limit by around 30 tons a year. And that's being conservative, probably way more. Because I eat steaks every day, I travel by car every day, I've been to 20 different countries in the last year and a half, so I'm pretty sure I go way over their limit. So say, for instance, in their new world, I used over 30 tons over my limit. That would mean I have to pay $170 times 30 in just carbon taxes for the year. That's over $5,000 for me. So imagine you're a family of 4. That's going to be over $20,000 in new carbon taxes under their scheme. And that doesn't even include the cost of living on everything that we're getting inflated on everywhere, every month. And that's why they'd introduced this idea of 15-minute cities. Because they know it is the only way to get your carbon footprint, meaning your footprint. You don't want you to go to Paris 2 times a year. They want you to go from here to just over there. So this idea of 15-minute cities was designed specifically to reduce your carbon footprint, which is a euphemism for reducing your mobility. That's all it means. And that's why they're dividing Edmonton into 15 what they're calling districts, straight out of the Hunger Games. And what is a 15-minute city, by the way? Oh, it's something that's so convenient, everything's going to be within 15 minutes of you. You're not going to have to worry about traffic because there's not going to be any cars. And when they say 15 minutes, they mean a 15-minute walk, not a 15-minute drive. So they want you to live in an area, a district, where everything that you need is a 1.5 kilometer walk in every direction. So they basically want to confine to, oh, that's amazing, right? Yeah, oh my God, wouldn't you all love that? Wouldn't you all love it if the government came and took your car and set up barricades every 5 square kilometers and told you you can't go to the other district? And if you... Oh, really? No one's saying that. So right now, in Oxford, England, no, they are doing it right now. Oxford, England is the first place to implement this 15-minute city. Oxford, England has already broken up their 15-minute city into 6 districts. Each district has a checkpoint with bollards that you cannot drive through. Each district also has cameras set up at every checkpoint. So if you leave your district when you're not allowed because you have to apply for a travel pass to leave your little 5 kilometers, you will get fined. And now in that 15-minute city in England, most of the roads are what they call ultra-low emissions roads, meaning you cannot drive on them unless you have an electric car. Awesome. And under the 15-minute city in Edmonton, every single district is being reimagined for what they're calling the post-car era. In your 15-minute district, they are going to remove parking, they are going to remove driving lanes, and they're going to replace it with pedestrian and bicycle vehicles. Because the average person will not be able to afford a car. The average person will not even own a car. That is what this plan is all about. And people like this will pretend it's a good thing. Why? Because look at him. Would he ever be able to buy a car? No. Would he ever be able to own a home? No. Could he even have a job or a girlfriend? No. So obviously he wants to bring you down to his level. It's that simple. It's that simple. That's what a 15-minute city is. And they want to use this idea of your personal carbon allowance to get you in a position where you will not be able to afford to leave your district. And when it gets to that point, you're toast. And at that point, they want to introduce a digital currency and a digital identity and a universal basic income. How are they going to get you on the universal basic income? Very simple. Canadians love to own their homes, don't we? Well, how many people overextend a little on their mortgage because they wanted that nicer house? Canadians are notorious for this. We love to overextend ourselves on our monthly payments for our mortgage because we spend a lot of time at home, so we love our home. But what's happened in the last few months? Interest rates went up, and they're going to go up again, and they're going to go up again, and they're going to go up again to the point where enough people are underwater on their homes that the government is going to come in with a brand new program to save you. Universal basic income. They're going to give you enough money every month so you'll be able to keep your home. But you'll have to sign on to the digital identity to get it. So you'll have to give your iris, your fingerprint, your facial recognition. You'll have to take their vaccines, whatever they tell you, and do everything you want. And now once they have you on a carbon allowance, these are the layers of tyranny, carbon allowance, 15-minute city, digital identity, they'll put you on a digital currency. Now they control, track, trace every single transaction you make. You will not even be able to sell your used shoes on Kijiji without the government knowing about it, having to give you permission, and of course taking their cut. So now you're going to be in a situation where you're stuck in a 1.5 square kilometer radius. You're not going to have a car. Your family is never going to be able to make money because the final step in this is a digital currency that expires, and China's already introduced it. So now it doesn't matter how many jobs you hold, how successful your business is, no matter how many hours you work, if you don't spend that money by a certain time, they're going to take it back.
This is a live stream, sorry.
So they're setting it up for you guys to sleepwalk into a perpetual cycle of slavery where your children will never be able to accumulate wealth, status, or pass on anything to their children. And the only people okay with this are people like that won't ever have kids anyway. So they don't care. They don't care about you. They don't care about the city. And in fact, they want you to lose everything because then you'll be on their level. And then you'll be just as miserable as them. So when they tell you a 15-minute city is about convenience, when they tell you it's about equity, when they tell you it's about inclusion, no. A 15-minute city is exactly what COVID was all about. Power and control for the government, and less power financially, and less control for your family, and above all, less freedom. Freedom of mobility, freedom to choose what you want to eat. They're already going to tell you what you want to eat. You're not going to be able, these ones are going to be eating the bugs and being happy. Me personally, I'm going to keep eating meat. And then how do you stop this? How do we stop it? It's pretty simple. The reason they're doing this is because they played their hand with COVID and everybody found out. All the people that took the jab, and most of them took it against their own will. If 75% of the population's jabbed, half of those people took it because they thought they had no choice, not because they thought they needed it. So now those same people are being told that they're going to have to give up their car, they're going to have to give up their way of life. It's not going to be an easy sell. So we got something good on our hands. We got a way to wake people up. But that's why they're coming at you with so many things at once. They want to overwhelm you. They want you to make you feel like it's inevitable. So you simply go along with it. Pretty soon your bank's going to ask you to sign up to a digital ID. Interact's going to ask you to sign up to a digital ID. When you want to register a business, they're going to try to make you do it online and sign up for a digital ID. Then they're going to try to do it for your travel. And if you go along with it, surprise, the next level is going to be the personal carbon allowance. If you start letting them track you, and I've already seen this, there's a certain restaurants you can go, an Italian restaurant. The pizzas will be listed, the price, and then depending on the toppings of the pizza, it'll have a different carbon rating. And in order for them to know how much carbon you're using, that means they need to know everything you're doing at every time. Everywhere you go, how many people went with you, how you got there, what you ate when you got there, etc. This is about control. But thankfully, they can only do it to you if you do it to yourself. It's really easy to just say no to a digital identity. It's really easy to just say no to a universal basic income. It's really easy to just say no to a 15-minute city. They're doing it in Oxford. You know what they're doing right now? They're smashing through the ballers with their cars. They're pouring concrete down there. They're ripping down the cameras. They try to tell you that, oh, our 15-minute city is different than Oxford. It's really not the same thing. Oh, really? Just like our COVID lockdowns were different than England? They want you to believe that this is coming from Edmonton. Meanwhile, the 15-minute city is coming from the same people that brought you the COVID pandemic. This is an international organization of unelected people that are using governments to implement their will on the people. The Oxford 15-minute city had 94% of the public vote against it. And they're like, oh, okay, oh, well, obviously that means we're still going to go along with it. And they did. And that's why people are like, screw you, rip down the cameras, smash down the bollards, and don't let it happen. It's that simple, and that's what you got to do here, because they're going to tell you, and they're going to tell you, oh, no, we're not doing this to lock you down. I asked the little city official really easily. I asked him one simple question. I go, say we agree with you. Say we allow them to put these 15-minute cities and set up these districts with these barriers between them. I'm like, say they decided to do another lockdown. Wouldn't that make it infinitely easier for them to stop us from going out of our homes and out of our areas? And he's like, well, I guess so. Gee, I wonder what this is all about. I wonder if COVID was like a dress rehearsal for how they want you to live. And the answer is yes. It's that simple. There's no reason for a personal carbon allowance. There's no reason for airlines to be trying to tell you how much carbon you're using to fly there. Klaus Schwab and Trudeau could fly on their private jet, and they'll use more carbon in that one flight than your entire family will use in the next 12 years, but they're going to tax you because you decided to take your family out for steak. Or they're going to tax you because you didn't decide to take the bus, you took a car, because you're one of the few people that still owns it. So when they ask you about a 15-minute city, ask them very simply, so are you going to take away parking in my area? They'll say yes. Are you going to make it harder for me to own a vehicle in my area? They're going to say yes. Are you going to make it harder for me to go from where what easily used to be 30 kilometers away, which will now seem a lot further? The answer will be yes. But at the same time, they're going to tell you life will be so much more convenient. Yeah, so much more convenient as long as you stay in your own little prison area. Toronto, Ontario already showed me what their 15-minute city looks like. They showed you a plan. And surprise, surprise, it's a group of towers all stuck together spanning 1.5 kilometers. That's special walking distance. And guess what? There's 3,000 so-called living quarters in there. You know what a living quarters looks like in the new world? 250 square feet for a single person, or 350 square feet for a couple. They call them studio apartments. And they're still going to be like 350 grand. And this is the best part. Not only are you going to live in that 1.5 square kilometer building, you're going to probably work there, you're going to go to the gym there, you're going to have your Starbucks there, your grocery store there. Virtually everything will be there. So you won't even have to leave your building for 90% of your life. In fact, you won't be able to, because what are you going to have? A scooter? An electric bicycle? You're not going to be going to the other side of the city for your favorite restaurant anymore. You're not going to be going out on a Saturday night to your favorite nightclub. You're not even going to be able to interact with people in the district 5 districts down. That's what they want. They want you isolated because they don't want people to come together like this. Yeah, what was bullshit that I said? I would like to hear you one thing. I'm going to give you 2 minutes, and I would like you to tell me one thing I said that was bullshit. Please. The last little bit you said. Okay, how about a specific thing? Because I said a lot in the last little bit. So out of all that bullshit, why don't you take the smelliest piece of shit and put it right here on my hand for everybody to hear?
You said that you're not going to be allowed out, and you're not going to be able to go to the bars. That's bullshit.
No, you will if you can afford it. But when you're on a universal basic income, and if it's past walking distance, you're not going to make it. What are you going to do? You're going to take the bus and take 6 different buses to go 40 kilometers so you can go to a restaurant? You know why they want to close all the small business, ladies and gentlemen? Because if they close all your small businesses and you go to the next district over, and every district has the exact same McDonald's and Starbucks and gymnasium, you have no reason to leave your district. Because it's the exact same, and that's what they want. They want to create these little tiny prison camps that are all identical, so you won't want to leave and you won't be able to leave. That's the reality of the situation. That's what a 15-minute city is. Bullshit! Well, it's bullshit. Okay, so it's also bullshit that Paris is the first place in the world to declare a 15-minute city. And Paris declared that they're doing this specifically because of climate change and specifically to reduce people's carbon footprint. Paris is so concerned about carbon footprint that under their 15-minute city plan, any local French flight that can be now done by train within 2.5 hours or less has been canceled indefinitely. So that's hundreds of flights within France are now no longer available because of 15-minute cities. So when they try to tell you that a 15-minute city isn't going to impact your mobility, that's a direct lie. When they try to tell you a 15-minute city is not going to impact your ability to go from one side of the city to the other, that's a lie. If it wasn't a lie, why would they need to divide the city into districts in the first place? Why wouldn't they just allow you to go as you please? The whole idea of dividing something into a district is to section it off from something else. There is no other reason for creating districts except to create barriers between those districts. And then those barriers will start off with fines and end up eventually with arrests, unless you have a little travel pass to go down the street. It's that simple. And anybody who tells you different, you can see they're fucking brain dead idiots that will never have anything in life, will never have a family, and probably their own family despises them, so that's why they secretly want to see your family suffer. But thankfully that is not the majority of Canadians. The majority of Canadians are good people. Unfortunately, if people like us don't go and tell the good people what a 15-minute city really is, you're going to have the government come in and say, the 15-minute city is the greatest thing that ever happened to you. Your personal carbon allowance is going to make your life so much more organized and easy, and they'll believe it, because Canadians are stupid. But thankfully it's working for us. Because how many people that took the jab now regret it? How many people that took the jab now don't trust the government anymore? So with this new movement, we can bring in a lot more people than the fight against COVID. Because there's no stigma about public health measures. There's no fear of dying from a virus. I don't think anyone's scared of traveling more than 15 minutes away from their house, are they? So it's going to be a lot easier to explain this to people and a lot easier to get Canadians on board with the idea to just say no to every one of these layers of tyranny. Thank you, everybody. I love you.
Ladies and gentlemen, can we have a little more love for Chris Scott?
Did you learn anything today? No.
Thank you for Sky for taking the time to come here
even have
and support
oxygen.
our message.
Totally
So our next speaker goes by the name of Benita Pedersen. She is a freedom-minded leader from Northland. She organized, promotes, and orchestrates freedom events and initiatives. She has worked with a variety of freedom-minded individuals and groups, including Alberta for Liberty, Alberta Prosperity Project, Take Back Alberta, and more. She's traveled across the province to several communities hosting freedom events, plus she has hosted in Saskatchewan, and she served as MP at the main stage in front of Parliament on Wellington Street in February of 2022. In addition to that, she initiated, facilitated, and orchestrated the Jericho March around Canada's Parliament from February 11th to February 17th of 2022. This is what she considers one of her greatest achievements this walk of fame. Today she's here to talk about working towards unity. How can we all work together better? Please welcome freedom advocate from allfiredupforfreedom.com, Benita Pedersen.
Thank you, Alexa, with YEG United. Can we have a big round of applause for all the people from YEG United for putting this event together? Young people standing for freedom with various freedom initiatives. Not just an event like this, but they're doing so much more, ladies and gentlemen. There are other great groups. Another one that's supporting today's event, by the way, is Alberta for Liberty. Can we hear it for Alberta for Liberty? Can we hear it, of course, again for Chris Sky? And I have an organization, it's called allfiredupforfreedom.com. That's what it's called, allfiredupforfreedom.com. So I'm going to say all fired up for, and you're going to say freedom, okay? We got to lift the spirit here. Let's lift the spirit. Here we go. All fired up for freedom! All fired up for what? Freedom! All fired up for freedom! you something about unity. In order for us to have unity, we do not need to agree on all things. We just need to agree on one or more things. That's all we need. How many agree on that? Round of applause. We can have unity. The majority of people here today are in opposition to 15-minute cities. That's why we're here. We're here because we have something in common. We disagree with 15-minute cities. We're determined to make our voices heard. And guess what? Our voices are being heard. They sent 2 representatives from the City of Edmonton here today, and they've been listening to what some of our people have to say. So round of applause that that's happening. And this is how problems are solved. This is how we solve the problems. It's through conversation. It's not just through demonstrations, it's through conversation where someone from one perspective has a conversation with someone from another perspective, and we listen to each other, and then we find resolution. And that's what happens. And by the way, a big thank you to all the people here who are being respectful, staying on the sidewalk, staying off the road. Just a big thank you to everyone here who's being safe. Can you guys give yourselves a round of applause? Thank you for that. So that the traffic can keep doing what they need to do. So it's through conversation where we have someone from this party who may have a certain viewpoint on something meet with someone on this party. And that's what's occurred today. The City of Edmonton representatives have been hearing our voices. We have also heard from the City of Edmonton their perspective. The conversation has started, ladies and gentlemen. They are now somewhat hearing us, because for them to send representatives here today to attempt to clarify any misinformation we might have, that tells you right there they're starting to listen. So let's round of applause, City of Edmonton. They're starting to listen, folks. And I have high hopes, and I want to tell you where my hope is. This is where my hope is. My hope is not in any particular group. My hope is in each and every one of you as individuals, including City of Edmonton, Mayor, Council, and staff. Each and every one of you as an individual, you have inside you something. You have inside in you goodness and love, and each and every one of us has a bit of darkness too. How many can admit to that? There's a bit of darkness in there. You can admit it. We're not all goodness and love. I get mad sometimes. There's a bit of darkness. And so this is my view. I believe that every one of those city councillors with the City of Edmonton and everybody who works for the City of Edmonton, it's the same thing. There's goodness and love inside them, and there's some darkness. And maybe there's also just some ignorance too, that they're just not fully aware of certain things and the implications of certain things. And so what I'm praying for is that their awareness increases, and that goodness and love for humanity comes forth. How many of you agree that could happen? It could happen. Those people who are our elected representatives are sitting in office, and they are making decisions that are not in our best interest. They've been pushing forward policies that are not for the people. Instead of helping people, they've been hurting people. And so what we're doing is we're helping make them aware of what's going on so they can change the path. So there can be redemption. That's what's got to happen. Each and every one is an individual. And when you're trying to get through to a person who's being difficult, they've got their wall up, they don't want to listen to you. I'm going to tell you that the way to get through to that person, here, push on my wall, push on it, push on it. Notice I resist you, you push on my wall. That's what I'm going to do when we have a wall. This is how you're going to get through to someone you disagree with. You bring them to the truth with love. Okay? That's how you're going to do it. Instead of a wall, we got a wall. Ready? Okay, we got a wall. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to sidestep the wall, and I'm going to say I love you. And we have a conflict. We actually had a conflict this week, actually. And you know what? We got past it, guys. We got past our conflict. We got past it. And that can happen with anyone. That can happen with you and your family. That can happen with us and Edmonton City Councillors. It can happen.
love is what wins. Love wins, and love is how we are going to win this. How many of you believe in that? How many believe? Love is what wins, and so we appreciate all the people who are here, and
Can
we
I give you
appreciate
share you some love?
those who are here who are from a different perspective. Let's have a round of applause for those from a different perspective that had the courage to show up today. Yeah. Because it takes courage sometimes. All right, so here's what I propose to you. You need to make 2 new friends today, two new friends, because this is part of coming together in unity. Just go up to someone, you're for freedom, I'm for freedom. Guess what? We're family. That's what it is. You make 2 new friends today. If you find someone who is not yet for freedom, and let's say they're of a different perspective, we want to give them one of these if they will accept it. That's for you if you would like that. Some information. Thank you for accepting my information. If you are curious about how you can help be more effective going forward, we want you to take one of these. So these are for you guys who are already freedom-minded. You take these. These are some suggestions for you going forward. Because, folks, we need to grow the freedom movement. We need more supporters in the freedom movement. These folks have a different mindset. I see all those people who appear to be our adversaries. I actually see them as potential allies. How many of you can agree on that? That there is the potential, come on, that we can make our adversaries into allies. It can be done. Will you hand those out? So this is for the freedom-minded, and the ones with this QR code here, this is for folks who are not yet freedom-minded. This is for those folks who aren't yet with us. So for the freedom-minded, please take one of those. So those are some suggestions on ways we can go forward. Now here's another suggestion. Take my card, take my number. If you don't have it already, text me. And I'll do what I can to connect you with groups that are doing good work. And one of those groups is Take Back Alberta. It's Take Back Alberta, folks. Part of the solution is political. That's part of it. Because politics, guess what? Politics is about policy making. Politics is policy making and it's people. So part of the solution is political. And Take Back Alberta has already had success at influencing our current governing party here in Alberta from within. How many of you are already familiar with the work of Take Back Alberta? Put your hands together. Great. If you're not yet familiar with the work of Take Back Alberta, please take my card. I will connect you with someone in your constituency that you can partner with and do good work. And here's what we're doing. We are, thank you, influencing the current governing party from within. We are going to our local constituency association meetings. We are electing freedom-minded people into leadership positions on those boards, folks. We are taking back Alberta, and we're doing it from inside the current governing party. That's what we're doing. Because at some point, I recognized that rallying outside of the legislature building was not enough. I had to somehow get myself in there, and I did. I saw Danielle Smith's office. I spoke with her some. I spoke with some ministers and some MLAs. We are more effective at changing from within. But to do that means, and here we go back to that message, you bring them to the truth with love. If you are hostile, you're not making a friend. You're not making an ally out of an adversary. The hostility needs to go. You got to push it aside, bring in the self-control, the respect, and even the love. How many of you can agree with that message? Fantastic. Well, I have some handouts for you. I've got my card. I've got some suggestions here for those who are freedom-minded. Please come see me. And once again, would you please give a round of applause to YEG United?
always seem so enthusiastic despite the times we are living in. It's voices like yours that keep people hopeful and motivated. So now we are going to be doing something a bit different, and I ask for this next part that everybody stays positive and peaceful, and that we can have a good conversation with this fellow. So somebody from the City of Edmonton has joined us here to inform people about 15-minute cities, and I think it would be a great opportunity to have a little Q&A and to have you guys ask questions and have him answer it so we can clear up any confusion that both parties have.
Put this in front of you, boss.
Okay.
Hey, thanks everyone. I won't take a lot of your time, but thanks for having me here. So my name is Sean Foley. I am a senior planner in the City of Edmonton, and I am responsible for writing for the district planning project. The project that's underway right now. Oh, sorry. Okay, everyone can hear me now, right? So, no, okay, really close. Sounds really loud in my ear. Okay. So I'll just start. I'll take questions, but let me just start with some introductory remarks. So for those of you who aren't really familiar with urban planning, as most people, it's kind of boring for most of the time. Every city and town in Alberta is required by the Municipal Government Act to have a plan for land use and transportation. So it's a plan that tells you where should the bigger buildings go, where should industrial uses go, where should new housing go. It talks about how the transportation system should change over time. So the City of Edmonton has one of these plans. It's called the City Plan, and it was approved by Council 2 years ago. So the previous plan that we had was supposed to be for 10 years. So it was basically running out of its time, and we had to make a new plan because we're required to by law. And when you do it, I've been a planner for 10 years, so I'm trying to give you a peek in behind how planners do their work. Planners look around and say, what are hip and current ways that people talk about a good city? What does it mean to be a good city? What do people want? And this term, the 15-minute community, was very popular at that time. It was created by an urbanist in Spain named Carlos Moreno. Paris was looking at it, and we latched onto this as this idea of, hey, this is an easy way to communicate what is a great place to live. Because I bet everybody here, when you bought a house or decide where you would rent an apartment, you thought to yourself, well, what's nearby? I want to make sure it's close to things that I want to get. Maybe it doesn't have to be right by my job because I'm willing to drive or whatever, but I want some things nearby. Just 1 second. I'll take questions 1 second.
Yes,
so,
yes.
the 15-minute communities is a phrase or a urban planning slogan that really is a continuation of just basic urban planning principles. Let's try and make sure there's lots of opportunities near where you live. Let's try and make sure there's lots of opportunities, a way for you to get around the city. And that's how it ended up. That's how this ended up in our city plan. District plans are basically just creating 15 plans, one for each area of the city. And the reason they exist is because Edmonton is so big that if your job was building apartment buildings, if you just looked at the city plan, it just is not zoomed in enough. It doesn't give you enough direction for you to know where would the city support me if I wanted to build an apartment building. So we create local plans. So we create local plans. Now, local plans have existed for decades. They already exist in the city, and usually they're like a few neighborhoods. But the city is so big now. There's over 300 neighborhoods. We can't make a local plan for each of them. So instead we said, let's just divide the city into 15 things. We'll call those things districts, and then we can make a plan for each of them and not have to make like 350 plans because we'll never get through it. So district plans are basically an administrative tool that the city uses to make informed decisions and to communicate to people information about where bigger buildings will go, where new transit infrastructure will go, where bike lanes will go, etc. That's what plans exist for. That's why we're making these. I would say that I learned 2 weeks ago when I started getting emails and phone calls that that slogan, the 15-minute community, which seemed like such a convenient way to explain what, a great slogan for where people want to live. Turns out it's connected to a lot of concerns people have, to things like the World Economic Forum and Davos and stuff like that. And so this is all new to me, and it's a very exciting time for me. I'm taking all sorts of emails and phone calls, and a few months ago I couldn't pay someone to talk to me about this stuff because it's so boring. Anyways, so that's what I do. That's what we're working on right now at the City of Edmonton. One last thing I'll say is the direction that I receive as an urban planner comes to me from city council, your elected councillor. They give direction to administration where I work, and they comment on the work that we do. As we prepare plans, we bring them to them, and we tell them this is what the public's been telling us. Maybe they tell us change this, keep that, etc. And if you have concerns about this, there's a process. The district plans eventually have to go to a public hearing of city council where they vote on if they come into existence or not, just like the city plan did. So that's how the process is. All right, that's it.
So I'm just going to ask one question, then we get everybody else's questions, because I think I have a question that a lot of you have as well. So I think I already asked you this too, but obviously we're concerned about what's happening in Oxford, England, as people are being fined up to £70 for leaving their 15-minute area. So if that's I know there's no plans for that on the City of Edmonton website yet, but as Edmontonians, we're all
Kenny said there wasn't going to be any vaccine passports either.
Well, why can't it happen here, right?
Sorry,
Another thing to
man.
note too is that Jason Kenny told us there wasn't going to be any vax passes, then what ended up happening? We had vax passes. So I think one question a lot of people have is that they're concerned with what's happening in Oxford is going to happen here. So can you tell us the information on that? Are we going to be fined, or how can you guarantee that we're not going to be fined?
So I'll speak as, I'm a senior planner at the City of Edmonton. So I'll tell you what I know is the plan that I'm working on preparing. There is nothing in any of the plans that we're working on or that already exist to try and control or limit or monitor how people move through the City of Edmonton.
I want to believe you.
Okay?
I know.
So I would say beyond that, doing those sort of changes or trying to implement some sort of system like that would go against what council has said that they want for the city, which is a dynamic, vibrant city, a city where you can start a business, a city where you can raise your family. And I think those types of controls, if they were to try and limit how people move through the city, would be against everything this city council and the previous city council have committed to. Yes, sorry, yes, go ahead.
The Liberals and the NDP have created a coalition, and they're all, or most all, members of the World Economic Forum, and I think what he's saying is, I'll just listen to him, but he's not the guy that's saying we're going to block that. So be careful with the words you hear. All I'm saying is, I don't trust everything you're saying at all. Because why would this city be so special that our city council doesn't contact us when you need call there? You can't get a call back. Why is it all across Canada this infrastructure man with all the cities? So I think you've lied to us.
No, he's not lying. He doesn't know.
Good question. I have a very good question. Since we know in Oxford, what question did she ask? Can you repeat it? How do you respond to a statement? Not very bright, huh? And you're wearing your mask outside. I have a very good question. Since we already know that you're pretending this is like an Edmonton thing, since we already know that this idea of the 15-minute city is coming from global bodies of unelected bureaucrats, and we already know that the pilot program, which all others are taking notes from and all others are emulating, is the Oxford, England. And we already know that in Oxford, England, they have physical barricades between the districts, and now they're putting up cameras to monitor traffic between the districts so they can fine you if you leave the district. And they also already have a system in place where you need to apply for a travel pass to leave your district. So since everything else about Edmonton's 15-minute city is virtually identical to Oxford's 15-minute city, why would we believe that they're not going to put physical barricades and security cameras to monitor us, and even have to get travel passes to travel between districts, just like they did with COVID, and just like all the other 15-minute cities around the world that are just a little bit ahead of ours are doing? I would like you to answer that. How can you reassure us that we're not just going to do exactly what Oxford did when the rest of the 15-minute city is identical to how Oxford is?
I believe the answer to that is contained in the political process. So what I mean by that, Chris, I mean by that, yes, so this is one way of organizing. So, and it's contributing to the political process, absolutely. So when new plans come into effect at the city, they have to go through a public hearing process. And that's not the only part of the process that's involved. New plans have to go through public engagement. We need to reach out and talk to people. So how can you be sure that these things don't exist in the plans? We have draft plans that are on the website right now. The city plan, which is basically what our plans are just copying and following, is already there on the website. And ultimately, nothing gets approved until it goes to City Council at a public hearing. These things, public hearings, are of course public. Anyone can attend. They're also broadcast. You can contact your councillor and ask them about the timing, how they feel about it, what their concerns are, and they'll respond. I can't speak for every councillor's office, but I can tell you I've received a lot of emails this past week and a half. It's been very interesting, and we've been able to respond to all of them so far. So we plan on doing that, responding to everybody who reaches out to us. Now, Chris, I've taken a lot of questions from you so far, so I just want to check to see if other folks. I'll ask you, and then you raise your hand.
I just want to be positive. You just mentioned that we got you just started the education process about stuff.
I'm getting in your way.
I
just
can't
let me
just
know.
speak.
You give us the promise that you continue with your education process. It's gonna help us to educate people to home. Because I just realized that you really have good intention. You didn't know. That explains a lot. But please continue to educate yourself in your home. Because this is what.
Thank you. Sir, did you?
Hi. Just a question. What happened to the area structure?
Louder.
Sorry. Can you all hear me now? What happened to the area structure plan process?
He asked what happened to the area structure plan process. And so everyone that can follow along, area structure plans are how new farmland at the edge of the city, how new plans are made for new neighborhoods to get built there. So it's part of like a series of plans that are created in order for homes and shops, etc. to be built. That process continues to exist. So at the edge of the city, where right now there's farmland, when developers assemble land and want to build new neighborhoods, they will go through a process whereby they propose a new plan and the city reviews it and they can get it off.
Thank you. So there used to be the area redevelopment plans. There used to be the area redevelopment plan process. So are you saying that is taken now and this is the district plan? So question. I also want to know who is funding this? Because the funding is coming from all over the world. Edmonton is also getting some type of funding, whatever it is, it's the federal government.
Where'd the $100 million for the pipeline
I think you're great coming here and direct.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I'd like to know what you're Sean. Okay, and I have quite a bit of.
How do you want? That's over
Okay.
Just like adjusting. In charge of the 50-minute city program to come and address it.
So I am the project manager for district planning. It is my responsibility to oversee the creation of the district plans, and that's why I came today. Also, I've been having a lot of conversations with people over the past week because I'm close to the project, I'm receiving the emails. So I wanted to come today because, you know, I heard people's concerns and I realized a lot of people are worried about the kind of changes that they're expecting. A lot of people, I feel like, have the wrong idea about what's happening, and so I'm sharing my perspective, and that is all. I'm not trying to speak ill of your knowledge and your understanding of the world, but I came here today because I'm responsible for this project, and I feel like this is part of my responsibility to come answer questions.
Was paved with good
just
intentions.
to answer the questions from the man who just spoke, and I'm not sure where he is gone. Yes, the city. Oh, there you are. yes, there are also plans called area redevelopment plans. They still exist in the city. District plans are meant to replace, in most cases, those kind of plans, because area redevelopment plans typically are a very small geography, and we just basically can't produce them for the whole city because there's so many neighborhoods. Okay, we'll go back to you for one more.
Okay, I'm going to call you yes to that. Yes, please.
Louder, louder, louder.
Roll. I am serious. Real issue. You're not getting support. There's money. All these need to follow the money. Right? Yeah. So you're in a tough spot. Quite frankly, you don't understand everything that is going on. You as the project manager have been thrown into this situation. All these people cannot be wrong. Okay, so I want you to really start looking up at this what you're involved in, because I have so many years working with this situation here that I understand. Because I have experience. Please, for your own sake, get the knowledge and stuff. These people respect.
Thank you, sir.
Like I say, I wasn't trying to speak ill. I'm just sharing my understanding of the city.
Okay, we have time for one more question, and then we do have somebody else on the
Okay, I can't tell if you're... Oh, okay. My question is regarding DEI. You look like a cis white straight male, so I'm wondering what you're doing about that in the City of Edmonton. Are you going to step down and let...
So that question is a good question, but I'm afraid it's a little bit outside of my area of expertise. You said DEI, so diversity and inclusion. Diversity, equity, So I think, sorry, I'll just to respond to your question, that one is maybe it's beyond my experience to answer right now at this time, but if you send an email for project development planning at edmonton.ca, we'll be happy to respond to you.
Okay, so last question for you. If you see any of the stuff we're talking about start to seep into your work, do you give us your word that you will fight against it vehemently?
Absolutely. If I honestly believe, sure, I'll swear on the Bible. I, Sean Bowley, solemnly swear. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Oh, I don't want to. Hey man, I don't swear on Bibles every day.
Go in front of me, I'm talking.
I, Sean Bowley, senior planner at the City of Edmonton, do solemnly swear. Is that good?
Yeah. Thank
That
you.
if the City of Edmonton ever tries to institute controls on the people's movement through the city, I will vehemently oppose it in my capacity as planner at the City of Edmonton. I feel very comfortable making that pledge because, as I told you, I'm working on these plans. That stuff is not in there. Thank you for listening to me. If you guys have emails or you want to follow up with me, you can send an email to districtplanning@edmonton.ca. You can also email me directly if you want. My first name, last name, Sean Bowley
edmonton.ca.
I'd be happy to answer more questions that way.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Sean. Next, we have somebody by the name of Trevor from World Campfire Initiative who is going to play some music for us and sing a song as well. If you want to ask Sean any more questions, I don't know where he went, but if you can go talk to him. Please tell me, Trevor.
How's everybody doing today?
Hey everybody.
Everybody ready to sing?
All fired up for freedom song.
So I'm going to play a song for you guys, and if everybody wants to sing along, I'm pretty sure you guys know this one. I'm going to do it without a microphone.
I appreciate
website, allfiredupforfreedom.com. So thanks so much for tuning in today. I'll show you a little bit of We're going to talk to Alexa here momentarily, ladies and gentlemen. Alexa is with YEG United. Okay. Alexa is with YEG United, ladies and gentlemen. Alexa, you're one of the organizers of today's event. How do you feel about today's event so far?
I'm feeling amazing. I think that we're definitely having some good conversations, and I'm glad that Sean from the City of Edmonton came. We had a little Q&A just now, so I think it's going awesome, and everybody is being positive, having smiles on their face. So yeah, I think it's going great. I'm really happy with the turnout.
Okay. Thank you, Alexa, for organizing this. Everybody, just get a good look at her. Alexa has been with YEG United for quite some time. To my knowledge, this is their first rally. Is this your first rally?
Yes, it is our first rally. So I think it's a really good turnout for being our first one.
Fantastic. So I love it that the young people are picking up the torch, folks, the torch, carrying the torch for freedom, lighting the fires of freedom, all fired up for freedom. I love it. Alexa, with regards to YEG United, can you tell us about any other upcoming events or initiatives that YEG United is involved in?
Yeah, so we like to host a lot of youth events because obviously we're trying to wake up our generation. So we have these events almost every weekend, and we do fires, parties, and protests like these. But I think going forward now, we're going to start to have more where people of all ages can come, and I'm hoping that we can make this 15-minute city protest a regular thing.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're inspired by what's going on in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. We've got young people involved now in organizing freedom events, pushing back, and today's event, I would say, is such a success. We actually had a planner from the City of Edmonton here speaking, as you saw. Share out this broadcast. More people need to see this, because this is how we're going to solve the problems of today. It's through having these conversations. And so I'm going to do another little run around, say hi to a couple more people. Did you want to comment? No? Okay, some people are shy, some are shy. Let's talk to a couple of more people before we wrap it up here. So again, we're in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. We're near the intersection of White Ave and Gateway North. So those cars you see coming towards us, those cars are heading north, and they get to see our giant, amazing signage, which reads #Reject Agenda 2030, all fired up for freedom.com. I have 12 of these banners, folks. 12 giant banners. I made them a couple of weeks ago, and they were on display south of Red Deer last weekend, and now I want these banners to travel across Canada. I'll be taking one to Winnipeg next week, well, at least one to Winnipeg next week. I've also planning to send one to Saskatchewan. If you want one of these giant banners and you'll display it at least once a week on an overpass or something, please let me know. My name's Benita Pedersen, and you can find my contact information at allfiredupforfreedom.com. So right now we're hearing from Trevor. He's going to do a little bit of music. We've still got some people gathered here. There were quite a few people here. I don't know if they did a head count, but it may have been 200 or 300. It was quite a crowd here. So really thankful for everybody who showed up here today expressing concerns about 15-minute cities, and of course also thankful for the people who showed up that are in favor of 15-minute cities, because then that way we can have a discussion. And so again, folks, thanks so much for tuning in. I'm Benita Pedersen, allfiredupforfreedom.com. I consider it a privilege to be of service to you, the Druthers supporters. I hope you've enjoyed today, and I encourage you to reach out with any follow-up questions, concerns, suggestions. Would love to hear from you. So thanks everybody so much for tuning in, and have a great day.
With unbreakable glass, and they're making it so we can't get cash, and then they're going to put these chips in our hand, which we